The Galactic Council chamber was unlike anything built on Earth. It was a hall the size of a city, filled with beings from 1,000 worlds. High above, holographic stars shimmered across the ceiling, glowing with cold blue light. Rows upon rows of alien leaders sat in silence, their strange eyes fixed on the single human who dared to stand in the center. She was not tall compared to most of them, but her presence carried a weight that silenced whispers. Her cloak of deep blue trailed behind her as she faced the giant screen where the High Chancellor of the Council appeared. His pale, hairless head and sharp features looked almost carved from stone. His voice, amplified through the hall, rang out like thunder. "Earth's representative," he declared. "The peace accord is before you. If you sign, your world will be protected under our law. If you refuse, your people will face war they cannot win." The words echoed across the chamber. Many alien delegates nodded, some even smirked. They believed humanity was still young, still weak, still foolish enough to resist the will of the stars. The woman did not flinch. She raised her head, meeting the Chancellor's gaze. Her voice was calm but strong, carrying to every corner of the chamber. "Peace built on chains is not peace. Earth will not kneel." The entire hall froze. For a moment there was silence, deep and heavy, as if the universe itself held its breath. Then chaos erupted. Alien voices rose in anger, their languages sharp and hissing. Some shouted that Earth must be punished. Others demanded that she be removed. A few leaned forward, curious, as though they had never seen such courage before. The Chancellor's face darkened. "Do you understand what you are saying?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "You are refusing the united will of the galaxy. You are rejecting peace for your people. You are choosing destruction." Her eyes did not waver. "No," she said. "I am choosing freedom." On Earth, billions watched the broadcast. Across crowded cities, rural towns, and orbital stations, people held their breath as her words reached them. Some clenched their fists in pride, others whispered in fear. But one thing was clear. Humanity had just crossed a line they could never step back from. The Chancellor turned his head slightly, speaking now to the gathered council. "Let it be recorded," he said, his tone sharp like a blade. "The planet Earth has refused the accord. They stand outside the law. They will bear the consequences." The council chamber filled with sound again. Some cheered for war. Some muttered warnings. A few shook their heads in disappointment. But the human woman stood unmoving, her cloak flowing gently around her feet, her eyes locked on the massive figure on the screen. "You think you are strong." One alien delegate hissed from his seat. His skin was covered in scales that shimmered red under the lights. "But we will crush your fleets, burn your cities, and erase your defiance from history." The woman turned her head slightly, her face calm. "Perhaps you will try," she said. "But you will remember that Earth was not afraid to say no." The chamber erupted again, but this time her words carried further than the shouts. Even among the alien delegates, a few sat quietly, their eyes narrowed, their thoughts hidden. Some had lived under the Council's rule for centuries, their people broken by forced treaties and unending demands. For them, her defiance sparked something dangerous: hope. Back on Earth, the reaction was immediate. In crowded streets, people cheered wildly. In military bases, soldiers straightened their backs. In factories, workers began to whisper that maybe, just maybe, humanity had finally found its voice. News anchors repeated her words again and again. "Peace without freedom is slavery. Earth will not kneel." The Chancellor raised his hand and the noise of the chamber fell into silence. His expression was like ice. "Then you have sealed your fate," he said. "From this day forward, Earth is no ally, no partner, no friend. You are an enemy of order, and the galaxy does not forgive its enemies." The screen faded, leaving only the stars shimmering above. Slowly, the human woman turned, her face lit by the glow. She looked at the countless alien eyes upon her, some burning with rage, some cold with judgment, and a few watching with quiet admiration. Her steps echoed as she walked away from the center, her cloak dragging across the polished floor. She did not hurry. She did not bow. She simply walked with the steady steps of someone who knew what she had done could not be undone. As she left the chamber, one thought burned brighter than all others. She had refused. And in that refusal, she had lit a fire that would either destroy humanity or make them stronger than ever before. Back on Earth, across every screen, every broadcast, every whisper, her words spread like wildfire. Children repeated them. Soldiers carved them into the walls of their barracks. Families whispered them around dinner tables. And in the deepest parts of the galaxy, in prisons and in colonies under the Council's thumb, oppressed peoples heard her words and felt something they had forgotten long ago. They felt courage. For humanity, the path was now set. There was no turning back. The galaxy would come for them. Fleets would rise against them. But Earth had chosen its place in history. The woman had stood in the center of the stars and spoken a single word that changed everything. No. The council chamber was still buzzing long after the woman left. Delegates shouted across the hall, their voices rising like a storm. The refusal had shaken them. No one had ever stood before the Galactic Council and said no. To most, it was unthinkable. To some, it was unforgivable. The High Chancellor remained silent, his cold eyes fixed on the stars displayed above. He did not need to speak. His silence was more terrifying than words. When he finally raised his hand, the noise fell at once. Every leader turned their gaze to him, waiting for judgment. Earth has chosen rebellion, the Chancellor said. The Accord was their chance at survival. Instead, they spit on the will of the galaxy. This insult will not stand. The chamber erupted again, but now the voices carried a different tone. War. A towering insectoid delegate slammed his claw against the table, sparks flying. Crush them before their defiance spreads. One planet is nothing compared to the Council's fleets. Destroy them quickly, and others will remember what happens to those who resist. Another voice rose, smooth and calm, belonging to a thin alien with silver skin that shimmered in the dim light. Yes, Earth is small, but small fires can burn forests. If we let them live, if we let their defiance stand, others will follow. We must act without mercy. Not all voices agreed. An elder with translucent skin and soft, glowing eyes leaned forward. We call ourselves keepers of peace, he said. If our peace is enforced with blood, then what are we? Earth's defiance is foolish, yes, but perhaps we should listen to why they refuse. He was shouted down at once. Weakness, one delegate cried. Compassion has no place here. But even as rage filled the chamber, the woman's words lingered like a ghost. Peace without freedom is slavery. Earth will not kneel. On Earth, the reaction was nothing short of fire. Cities erupted with noise, not in fear, but in pride. From New York to Nairobi, from Tokyo to Cairo, people poured into the streets waving flags and chanting her words. For the first time in centuries, humanity felt united under one voice. News channels replayed the moment over and over. Children repeated it at schools. Soldiers repeated it in training grounds. Families whispered it in their homes. Earth was no longer just a planet under threat. It was a planet with purpose. But there was fear, too. Some whispered that the woman had doomed them all. Others feared the Council's fleets, knowing their weapons could shatter continents. In government halls, leaders argued. Some wanted to beg for forgiveness. Others believed surrender was worse than death. Yet as the days passed, one truth became clear. The people were behind her. And when the people chose, leaders had no choice but to follow. In the Council's war chambers, strategies were already being drawn. Holographic maps of Earth floated above long tables. Fleet commanders pointed at targets, cities, defense grids, orbital stations. They spoke of how quickly they could silence the human world. They will fall in days, one commander promised. Their fleets are young. Their weapons are crude. Their spirit is strong, yes, but spirit cannot stop plasma fire. The Chancellor listened in silence, his pale hands folded before him. At last he spoke. Then prepare the fleets. The galaxy will see that resistance is pointless. Back on Earth, preparations had already begun. Factories roared to life. Old machines were repaired. New weapons were built. Soldiers drilled day and night. For the first time in living memory, every nation of Earth set aside their disputes and stood as one. The woman who refused the Accord became more than a diplomat. She became a symbol. Posters of her face appeared across cities. Statues were raised. Songs were written. To some she was a hero. To others a prophet. In a quiet base under the mountains, generals and scientists gathered around her. Holograms of alien fleets flickered before them. They will come, one general said. Their fleets are vast. Their weapons outmatch ours. But we have something they do not. What? Another asked. The woman looked at them, her eyes steady. We have no choice but to win. That makes us dangerous. Her words spread quickly, whispered from one soldier to another, from one worker to the next. Humanity had no allies, no council to defend them. They had only themselves. And for the first time in history, that was enough. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, whispers spread. In colonies ruled harshly by the Council, Slaves and workers heard Earth's defiance and dared to hope. In distant worlds, rebels carved the human woman's words into walls. On ships flying under alien banners, prisoners whispered, "If Earth can say no, why can't we?" The Council knew it. That was why their rage was so great. It wasn't just about Earth, it was about control. If Earth stood, others would rise, and the Council could not allow that. The High Chancellor returned to the chamber one final time. His voice echoed like iron. "Earth has chosen war, so war they shall have. The fleets will move at dawn, and when the stars burn above their skies, humanity will learn what it means to defy the Council." But across Earth, no one bowed their head. No one bent their knee. For better or worse, they had chosen their path. The outrage of the galaxy had been unleashed, and humanity would answer it. The news of the Council's decision spread faster than light. Across every starport, every colony, every broadcast screen, one message was clear. The alien fleets were coming for Earth. On most worlds, such news would have broken the spirit of the people. But on Earth, something different happened. Instead of fear, there was resolve. Instead of despair, there was fire. Humanity had been threatened before, by wars, by disasters, by famine, and every time they had survived. This would be no different. Factories that had been silent for years roared back to life. Old assembly lines built for cars and planes now forged weapons and drones. Engineers worked without sleep, welding armor, designing new weapons, and improving old ones. Students volunteered as workers, building ships they would never fly. In military bases hidden under mountains and oceans, commanders studied holograms of alien warships. Their size dwarfed Earth's fleets, their firepower unmatched. Yet the humans refused to see defeat. General Marcus, a scarred veteran with a voice like gravel, stood before his officers. "They think we are weak. They think we will bend. They are wrong. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier, we fight until the last breath. Not for power, not for conquest, but because this is our home." The officers nodded, their faces hard. Humanity had no choice but to fight. The woman who had refused the treaty became the symbol of it all. Wherever she went, crowds gathered. People held her hands, begged her to speak, asked her to promise that Earth could win. She never lied to them. "This war will not be easy," she told them. "Many will fall. But if we surrender, we lose more than our lives. We lose who we are. And humanity will never kneel." Those words echoed across every city, every village, every shipyard. Soldiers painted them on their armor. Pilots etched them into the sides of their ships. Children whispered them before sleep. For the first time in centuries, humanity stood as one. Nations that had once been enemies now worked side by side. Borders meant nothing. Only survival mattered. The first fleets were assembled in orbit above Earth. Warships old and new floated like steel guardians, their hulls painted with fresh coats, their cannons ready. They were small compared to the Council's vast armadas, but they carried something more dangerous than weapons: determination. Captain Elena Cruz walked the deck of her battleship, the Resolute. She ran her hand across the cold metal of the control panels. "She's not the biggest," she told her crew, "but she's ours. And she'll fight until the stars burn out." Her crew cheered, their voices carrying through the halls of the ship. On the ground, people prepared too. Cities dug shelters. Families stored supplies. Farmers donated food. Every citizen was part of the war effort. Humanity's strength was not just in soldiers, but in unity. In one small town, an old man repaired radios, ensuring communication lines would never fail. In another, a young girl built drones from scrap, sending them to the front. Everywhere, people gave what they could. This was not just a war of armies. It was a war of survival, and survival demanded everyone's hand. But even as Earth prepared, the skies darkened. Telescopes and satellites picked up movement. Alien fleets, vast and endless, were gathering near the edge of the solar system. Their warships, larger than mountains, glowed with the light of energy weapons capable of tearing continents apart. When the news reached Earth, there was no panic. Instead, there was silence, a silence of grim understanding. The time had come. General Marcus stood before a giant screen, the alien fleet glowing in red markers. "They outnumber us 10-1. Their weapons are stronger, their ships are faster, but they do not know us. They do not understand us. Humanity does not surrender. We will make them bleed for every inch." In the council chamber, alien leaders prepared to watch. Many were certain it would be a short war. Some even laughed, calling Earth arrogant. But there were others, silent and thoughtful, who wondered. If Earth truly had no chance, why did they stand so tall? Why did they face the impossible with eyes unafraid? The night before the battle, Earth was quiet. Cities dimmed their lights, ships floated in silence. Soldiers wrote letters home. Pilots checked their weapons one last time. Families held each other close. On the roof of a government building, the woman who had refused the accord stood alone, looking up at the stars. She knew fleets of unimaginable power waited out there. She knew the Council wanted her world broken, and yet her heart did not waver. "Let them come," she whispered. "They will learn what it means to face humanity." Dawn rose over Earth. From orbit, the blue and green planet glowed bright against the dark of space. And then on the horizon, shadows appeared. Alien warships emerged from the void, their hulls black against the stars, their weapons glowing with deadly light. Every screen on Earth lit up. Every soldier raised their weapon. Every citizen held their breath. The first clash was here. Humanity stood ready, and this time, they would not bow. The alien fleet arrived like a storm. Their warships darkened the stars, hundreds of them moving in perfect formation. Each vessel glowed with cold blue energy, their weapons hot and ready. To the people of Earth watching from their homes and cities, it felt as though the sky itself was falling. In orbit, Earth's defenders waited. Human warships, smaller, fewer, less advanced, formed tight lines around the planet. Their hulls bore scratches from rushed repairs, their weapons patched with fresh welds. Yet inside each one, the crews were steady. Every hand was firm on the controls, every eye locked on the enemy. Captain Elena Cruz stood on the command deck of the Resolute. Her crew sat ready at their stations, the tension heavy but unbroken. "They're here," she said, her voice steady. "Remember why we fight. Not for power, not for glory, for Earth, for our people." Her words echoed in the comms, reaching dozens of ships. Across the fleet, soldiers raised their fists, pilots gripped their controls. Humanity's heart beat as one. The alien flagship advanced first, its size so vast it blotted out the stars behind it. From its underbelly, light grew brighter and brighter until it exploded outward, a beam of energy tearing across the void. The beam struck Earth's outer defenses. An orbital station shattered in fire, pieces burning as they fell toward the planet. The war had begun. Human ships answered at once. Railguns roared, firing slugs of metal at impossible speeds. Missiles streaked through the dark, leaving trails of fire behind them. The first alien cruiser shook under the assault, its shields flaring. The ship did not fall, but the galaxy had just witnessed something they had not expected. Humanity's defiance had teeth. The battle spread quickly. Alien warships surged forward, their weapons cutting through the void with blinding light. Human ships scattered, darting between blasts, striking when they could. For every human ship destroyed, 2 more pressed forward, refusing to retreat. On the Resolute, alarms blared. A blast tore across the side, shaking the ship. Sparks rained from the ceiling and smoke filled the bridge. Damage to starboard shields. An officer shouted. "Keep us steady," Captain Cruz ordered. "Aim for their engines. Make them feel us." The gunners obeyed. Railgun rounds slammed into the nearest alien ship. Its shields flickered, then failed. A final missile struck home, and the vessel exploded in silence, its pieces scattering like ash across the stars. The crew cheered, but only for a heartbeat. More enemy ships closed in. On Earth, people watched live broadcasts of the battle. Children clung to their parents. Soldiers clenched their weapons. Workers paused in their factories to see the sky burn. Every loss was felt like a wound, but every victory sparked fire in their hearts. In one small village, an old woman whispered, "We are still standing." And across the planet, millions whispered the same. The alien commander sneered from his throne aboard the flagship. "Stubborn creatures," he hissed. "Break them!" Another wave of energy fire swept through the void. 3 human ships were caught, their hulls torn apart in bright flames, yet humanity would not bend. A squadron of smaller fighters darted in close, weaving between the alien beams. They unleashed torpedoes at point-blank range. The alien ship shook violently before splitting in 2, its wreckage tumbling into the black. "Keep fighting," came the call across the comms. "For Earth," the words became a chant. In ship after ship, soldiers repeated it, their voices loud and unyielding. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The stars above Earth burned with fire and smoke. Dozens of human ships were gone, but so were dozens of alien ones. The Council had expected an easy victory, but what they faced was resistance like nothing they had ever seen. Inside the Council chamber far away, alien leaders watched the live feed. Some leaned forward in shock, others in anger. Impossible, one whispered. They should have fallen by now. But Earth had not fallen. On the Resolute, Captain Cruz wiped blood from her brow, her ship battered but alive. "Status?" she asked. "Half the fleet is gone," an officer replied, his voice strained. "But so is theirs." Cruz nodded, her eyes burning with resolve. "Then we keep going. If we fall standing," the crew roared in answer. Finally, after endless hours of battle, the alien fleet began to pull back. Their commander, furious, barked orders to retreat. Humanity had not won outright, the cost was too great, too many lives lost. But they had not been crushed either. For the first time in galactic history, a world had faced the Council's might and remained standing. As the alien ships disappeared into the void, battered human warships floated in silence, their crews exhausted but alive. The survivors cheered weakly, their voices carrying through broken comms. On Earth, the news spread instantly. People flooded the streets, crying, cheering, holding each other close. They had survived the first clash, and survival meant something more than victory. It meant hope. The woman who had refused the accord stood before the crowds in Earth's capital. Her voice, carried through broadcasts, reached every home. "They came with fire," she said. "They came with power. And we are still here. This was only the beginning. More battles will come. But remember this: humanity does not break." The crowd erupted in cheers. Across the galaxy, oppressed worlds listened in silence, their hearts stirred. If Earth could stand, maybe they could too. The Council had thrown its fury at Earth, and yet humanity stood. The war was far from over, but the first clash had proven one truth the galaxy could never again deny: humanity would fight. The first battle was over, but its echo stretched across the stars. The Council had expected Earth to be ashes by now, a warning to all other worlds. Instead, their mighty fleet had limped away, scarred and humiliated. On Earth, victory tasted bittersweet. Streets overflowed with celebration, but every cheer was followed by silence for the lives lost. Families wept for those who would never return. In military hospitals, rows of wounded soldiers lay side by side. Yet through grief, one truth burned brighter than the pain: humanity had survived. In underground command halls, generals and scientists gathered. Holographic maps of alien ships spun in the air, glowing in shades of red and blue. Engineers replayed battle footage, frame by frame, searching for weaknesses. Dr. Kaido, a thin man with silver hair, leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the recordings. "Pause there," he ordered. The screen froze, showing an alien cruiser under heavy fire. "Notice this point here near the rear thrusters. Their shields flicker when they fire their main cannons. It leaves them exposed, if only for seconds." The room filled with murmurs. A weakness, small, dangerous, but real. General Marcus slammed his fist on the table. "Then we use it. Every ship, every pilot, they aim for that window. We may be outnumbered, but if we can hit them where it hurts, we have a chance." The woman who had refused the accord stood at the back of the room. Her voice was calm but firm. "The galaxy believes Earth is stubborn. Let them learn we are clever too." Training began at once. Pilots practiced maneuvers again and again, weaving through holographic fire to strike at the enemy's thrusters. Soldiers drilled until their bodies ached, preparing for ground invasions that could come at any moment. Engineers built new weapons designed to pierce alien armor. The people of Earth gave everything. Families donated supplies. Farmers sent food. Children collected scraps of metal for factories. Humanity was fighting not just with soldiers, but with every hand and heart. And beyond Earth, whispers spread faster than the Council could silence them. On distant colonies, slaves passed the news in secret. Earth had made the Council bleed. Rebels carved humanity's words into walls. Earth will not kneel. For the first time in centuries, the Council felt fear, not of Earth's weapons, but of Earth's example. Weeks later, the second battle began. Alien fleets descended again, larger than before. Their ships stretched across the stars, blocking out the light of the sun. The Council had come to finish what they started, but this time humanity was ready. Human ships shot forward, smaller and faster. They darted between the massive alien warships, luring them into firing. When the alien cannons blazed, their shields flickered. And in those seconds, human weapons struck. One alien cruiser after another shuddered and broke apart. Explosions lit up the void, scattering debris like sparks in the night. On the Resolute, Captain Elena Cruz shouted orders. "Now, aim for their engines! Strike while their shields are down." Her crew obeyed, missiles slamming into an alien destroyer. The ship split in two, its wreckage drifting through the dark. Cheers erupted across the fleet. Humanity was turning the tide. The alien commander snarled aboard his flagship.
"Impossible."
"They are learning too quickly." His claws tore across the arm of his chair. "Crush them. Do not let them breathe." But no matter how many waves he sent, humanity answered with fire. Fighters weaved in tight formations, striking and retreating. Larger ships took heavy blows, but every time one fell, two more fought harder. It was no longer a battle of numbers. It was a battle of will. On Earth, people watched with wide eyes. When human ships struck and alien vessels burned, entire cities erupted with cheers. When human ships fell, the world fell silent, mourning as though the lost crews were family. In a way, they were. The woman's face appeared on every broadcast. She spoke only a few words, but they carried weight across the planet. They think this is the end. Show them it is only the beginning. Hours later, when the smoke cleared, the Council's fleet pulled back once more. Humanity had not destroyed them completely, but the cost of the attack was heavy. Alien warships, once thought untouchable, now drifted lifeless in orbit. Humanity had held. Across the galaxy, shock spread. Species long crushed under the Council's rule whispered that Earth had found a way. If humanity could wound the giants of the stars, then maybe others could rise too. The Council leaders raged in secret halls. Their voices clashed in fury. This cannot continue. Earth is spreading rebellion like fire. The High Chancellor stood, his pale face cold. Then we burn them until nothing remains. If Earth stands, the galaxy will never obey again. But even as he spoke, he knew something had changed. The humans had shown they could not be easily crushed. And worse, others were watching. On Earth, the survivors returned to the surface. Crowds met them with tears and cheers. Soldiers carried the wounded on their shoulders. Pilots stepped out of their cockpits to the embrace of strangers. The woman who had once stood alone in the Council chamber now stood before her people. "We have seen their power," she said, "and we have seen their weakness. They call us rebels, but we are more than that. We are human, and humanity does not bow." Her words were carved into banners, printed on walls, shouted from rooftops. They traveled not only across Earth, but across the stars. The war was far from won. The Council still held fleets beyond number. But for the first time, humanity had given the galaxy something far greater than a battle. They had given it hope. And hope was far more dangerous than any weapon. The war stretched on. Battle after battle, month after month. Humanity bled, but so did the Council. Each clash left scars across the stars. Alien fleets returned again and again, stronger and larger. Yet Earth refused to break. From the ruins of cities, new armies rose. From the wreckage of destroyed ships, engineers built new weapons. For every human who fell, 10 more stood ready. What the galaxy had thought was stubbornness became something else, endurance. Humanity would not fall, no matter the cost. The Council leaders raged in their chambers. The High Chancellor's voice thundered through the hall. They should have been broken. They should have been dust. His pale fist slammed against the table. And yet they stand. Their defiance spreads like a plague. He was right. Across distant worlds, whispers grew into shouts. In slave colonies, people painted Earth's symbol on walls. In mining stations, workers refused to bow. In forgotten corners of the galaxy, rebellions sparked like flames in dry grass. All of it traced back to one moment. To one woman who had stood before the galaxy and said no. On Earth, she walked through the streets, no longer just a leader but a living symbol. Children followed her, chanting her words. Soldiers saluted as she passed. Families left flowers at her feet. She carried their hopes like armor, even as her shoulders grew heavy with the weight. One evening, she stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Lights glowed in the distance, ships rising into the sky like fireflies. Beside her, General Marcus spoke softly. "We are still standing," he said. "For how long?" She asked quietly. "As long as we must," he answered. His eyes were hard but proud. "We fight because we cannot do anything else. And because the galaxy is watching." She nodded, knowing he was right. Humanity was no longer just defending Earth. They were defending the idea of freedom itself. The turning point came in the third year of war. Humanity, battered but unbroken, launched a counterstrike deep into Council space. Their fleets, smaller but sharper, struck at supply lines and communication hubs. They were no longer just defending, they were forcing the Council to bleed where it had never bled before. Other species began to rise. Small uprisings at first, then entire planets. Some declared independence openly, waving banners marked with Earth's colors. The Council fought back with fury, but the fire was spreading too quickly. In secret, messages reached Earth. Leaders of oppressed worlds whispered, "We will fight beside you. Show us the way." The Council had tried to make Earth an example. Instead, Earth had become a beacon. Years later, the Council summoned another great meeting. Once again, the chamber filled with leaders from 1,000 worlds. But this time, humanity did not come as beggars. They came as equals. The woman entered the chamber, her cloak the same deep blue as before. Behind her walked generals, scientists, and soldiers. Every step echoed across the hall. The alien leaders who once mocked her now watched in silence. The High Chancellor's face was pale with fury, but even he could not deny the truth. Earth had stood. Humanity had earned its place. She raised her voice, calm and steady. "You offered us peace in chains, and we refused. You sent war, and we endured. Now we stand before you not as slaves, not as rebels, but as equals. Humanity will never kneel, and neither should any world." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Some alien leaders lowered their heads in shame. Others clenched their fists in anger. But many, many more than before, rose to their feet. For the first time in galactic history, voices joined Earth's. "We will not kneel." The Council had lost its grip. The galaxy had changed. Back on Earth, the war slowly faded into memory. Cities were rebuilt, scars healed. But the story was never forgotten. Monuments rose to the fallen. Songs told of the first clash, the turning points, the victories bought with blood. Children grew up learning the words that had begun it all. Peace without freedom is slavery. Earth will not kneel. The woman lived to see the day when ships from across the stars landed on Earth not as conquerors but as allies. Worlds once divided now stood together, each remembering who had lit the first spark. In her final speech, she stood once more before her people and the galaxy beyond. Her hair was streaked with silver, her voice softer than before, but her eyes still burned with fire. "We were told to bow. We refused. We were told to die. We endured. Humanity was never the strongest, never the largest, never the most powerful. But we were the ones who said no. And because of that, the galaxy is free." Her words echoed not only through the hall but across countless worlds. For generations they would be remembered. And so humanity's legacy was written, not in conquest or domination, but in defiance. They had faced the impossible, stood against the stars, and carved their place with courage alone. The Council's records called it the Age of Defiance. Humanity called it something else. They called it freedom.